Okay, hey guys, Dennis Ventura here. Welcome back to the podcast. Today we are wading into some amazing waters with a very special guest, Matthew Bernhardt. We're talking about fly fishing, but not just the sport. We're diving into the process and the passion behind the craft. So let me go ahead and talk about Matthew real quick. Matthew is the founder of Drifthook Fly Fishing at drifthook.com, a company that sells fly fishing kits and offers instructional videos for anglers. So if you want to learn about fly fishing, go ahead and check out drifthook.com. Matthew grew up in Colorado with a passion for fly fishing, which came from the many hours he spent fly fishing with his father, a lifelong angler and guide back in the 1970s and 80s. Just really grew up with, that Colorado spirit and just being on the water and getting, a lot of experience. Matt launched Drifthook back in 2014 with the goal.
That long? Wow.
That long, yeah. Time flies, right, Matt? So
Yeah.
back in 2014 with the goal of creating comprehensive kits that both beginners and experienced fly fishermen could use to become more successful on the water. Drifthook kits include hand-tied flies and downloadable guides and videos to help you fly fish like a pro. So, Matthew, I'm really excited to talk to you because you have such a great story, perfect blend of history and passion. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Dennis. Thanks for the awesome introduction. Just want to give props out to my dad, who is still fly fishing. He's actually probably out on the water today, and yeah, he'd still be guiding if it wasn't for my grandma or my mom. Um, letting him out there at his ripe old age of 76. So no, he's doing great, and the business is doing great. It's a passion that I've always had, and I love to be able to share the knowledge of fly fishing with anybody that has any questions about it. That's why we're here today, to answer a bunch of questions to the greatest ability of my knowledge. And hopefully this helps new beginners. And as we progress with these podcasts, we can kind of start diving into some deeper techniques that can help you out on the water.
Yeah. And I was going to say also probably fly fishing is one of those things that helped with the longevity with your dad, right? I mean, being out there,
being outside, being in the water, the exercise that goes with it, the camaraderie, the people you're with, all these things kind of tie together for an enjoyable experience and a fun one at that.
Awesome. Before we get into questions, so we're going to be kind of tackling some of the most popular questions that people, when they're looking to get into the sport, kind of ask. But before we get into that, why don't we give people a little bit about your background? So why don't you tell us a little bit about how you got into, fly fishing in the first place?
Yeah. So kind of as you alluded to at the beginning, my parents owned a fly fishing company and a rafting guide company on the upper Colorado in the 70s, 80s, early 90s. I grew up around guides. I grew up around the river. Started just with a basic spinning pole and then progressed to fly fishing. From there, it kind of grew into a passion where I soaked up as much knowledge as I could on the subject. And as years progressed, I always kind of ran into this conundrum of, what is the hardest thing I think about fly fishing? And that had to be just fly selection. Like, what are the trout going to be eating on any given day? And that's where I came with the idea for Drifthook. What we've done is we've compiled kits of specific fly patterns that are going to help you catch fish any time of the year. If you like to dry fly fish, we have a kit for that. If you like nymphing, we have a kit for that. If you're into streamers, we have kits for those. We are diving into different areas of fishing as the company progresses. We're going to be starting to develop a bass fishing kit. We have some partners we're working on with that. And we're also just released a Euro nymphing kit last year, which is one of my new favorite things to do. It's a different technique of fly fishing, and it's something new to me, but at the same time, I'm learning, and it's a ton of fun to do. So
awesome, man. And I know when you first started, I mean, we've been working together for a while, kind of on and off. You kind of started the website and then you kind of like a strategy and stuff like that. But how did you, it definitely sounds like you have a long history kind of doing it, right? And then at what point did you say, okay, I can develop a product around this that is going to help other people? Did you see like a gap in what you were using, or
Yeah, I
what?
think so. I think the biggest thing is, I walk into a fly shop, and this is a great thing about fly shops is you can go in and say, hey, what are they using, or what are they hitting on, or what's going to be good for me today, and they're going to give you a set of flies that are going to work for that. But I get there with this set of flies and I go, well, why? Why this one over this one? Why today? Why not next week? Why not? Is it going to work in 4 months from now? So the more you dive into the entomology of the flies and how they're tied, you're going to learn and you're going to realize that there's a handful of categories that trout like to eat. And I said, hey, why don't we put those categories together so it makes it easy for a person when they get to the water saying, hey, you know what? It's July, the mayflies are hatching, and where do I find that in my box? I grab my box, I look at my label, I open it up, I have my assortment I can pick from. That was the basis of the idea. But then I felt, hey, we need to get people a little bit more. We got, if someone's never done this before, just selling them flies is not going to help them catch fish. So that's where we decided to develop all of our learning tools, all of our videos, our over 200 blog posts at drifthook.com, our YouTube channel. All these elements are packaged in a way that they're easily digestible, that you can watch, you can read, depending on how you learn. And it kind of breaks it down step to step. If you've never done it, we have beginners. If you have done it and you want to learn the Drifthook fly fishing system, we have an intermediate section of videos that dive specifically into how our boxes are laid out and how to use them. And then we have advanced techniques that go into different fly fishing techniques with your dries, with your nymphs, with Euro nymphing. If you want to fish on a lake, all different aspects of fly fishing. So that's how that kind of comes to be.
Awesome. So you really kind of came at this from someone who actually is out there trying to figure out how to be better at the sport,
Right.
not just somebody who's looking to make a product. So I mean, I think there's a huge amount of value in that. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started with some basic questions,
Yeah.
because what we want to try to do with this series of kind of podcasts is really try to get in front of people that are just getting started, either beginners or experienced, and they really want to kind of learn more about it. And then obviously we want to go ahead and use your knowledge to be able to help them kind of grow into the sport. So we're going to start at kind of basic with some basic questions. So why don't we go ahead and talk about what exactly is fly fishing?
So Dennis, fly fishing is a type of fishing that uses the weight of the line itself to shoot out the bait or the fly versus the actual weight of the bait from like spinner fishing or gear fishing. And you're using the weight of that fly line to push your specific fly to a specific target. That is the big difference between a spin fisherman and a fly fisherman. The rods are built specifically to bend, to give that flex, and the weight of the line makes a whipping motion to put the fly out onto the water. That is what fly fishing is. Now, if you look at fly fishing as a whole, that's a lot like gymnastics. Gymnastics is the overarching sport. But underneath that, you have a bunch of different categories. So when you hear people talking about nymphing, that is a style of fishing where the fly is underneath the water. Dry fly fishing, that is a style of fishing where the fly floats on top of the water. You have Euro nymphing, which is a technique very similar to nymphing, but you're not using indicator or weights. You have streamer fishing, which is very similar to spinner fishing because you're mimicking a bait fish type style, but you're using a fly rod. And that just covers stuff that you can do on a river, on a lake. There's other techniques and other types of fly fishing that you can do in saltwater, that you can do in ponds, that you can do warm water. The techniques are endless. And that's what makes the sport fun, is that the minute you think you have it, you can go to a different section of it and learn something completely new.
Wow, sounds awesome. I mean, and that all kind of sounds like it's a progression over time, like any other sport. So let's go ahead to the second most popular question that people ask is, how exactly does fly fishing work?
So the reason fly fishing works, and if we talk about it working as in catching fish, is that the patterns are hand-tied and designed to mimic aquatic life cycles that specific fish eats. Now, if we're just talking about trout, we're talking about a category of a nymph stage, an adult stage, a spinner stage, and a merger stage. These are different life cycles, that sections that all the trout feed on. And you can kind of put these in a category of like, I know at certain times of the year that fish are going to be eating subsurface all the time. I know that when I'm looking out of the water, if I see the back or a head come up and pop, they're probably coming for an emerger or they're coming up for a dry fly. There's different ways that you can use these techniques to be more successful on the water.
Okay, awesome, awesome. Yeah, and like I said, I mean, we're really trying to give somebody who's just getting started kind of some basic information. So
Yeah.
we're really going to cover a lot of good questions in this. So the third most popular question that people ask is, why do people fall in love with fly fishing?
There's two answers to that. The first one is it's new and exciting. Second one is it's always challenging. Just when you think you have it figured out, you walk around the bend and it's a new challenge. There's a saying that the tug is the drug, right? It's the minute you catch your first fish on a ply rod, you never go back. It's one of those things where that rod bends over and you're trying to get that fish in and you're on cloud nine. It's one of the funnest things that you can do as an outdoor sport. And another great thing about it is you're out there alone, but you're not alone. And if that makes any sense, you're with nature, you're getting exercise, you're going through your thoughts and you're trying to figure out the next thing of how to catch a fish. But at the same time, you're all together in one with the environment that you're in. It's awe-inspiring, to say the least.
Awesome. Like, I love that the tug is the drug, man. I mean, that is, like I said, it could be on a hat or on a shirt. I would say maybe that could be some merch that could be put up there. So
we're fans. You don't like to promote drug use or alcohol use, but yeah, it could be. So
yeah, I guess, yeah, that makes sense. But let me ask you this. Why is fly fishing considered, sometimes better than regular fishing?
Ooh, that's a loaded question there, Dennis. I mean, to me, I think it is, but that's personal opinion. I do all types of fly fishing. I do all types of fishing. I spin fish, I bait fish, but of all the types of fishing, fly fishing is the most enjoyable to me. I'm just happy when people are outside doing things, right? They don't have to be fly fishing. It'd be great if they tried it. I think they'd really enjoy it if they did. But as long as people are out there and enjoying life, like that's the most important thing.
And I guess, yeah, that's kind of like a loaded question. It's subjective, right? There are people that love going, sports fishing and going out there into the deep oceans and getting some big fish, right?
Yeah.
This is like more like you're surrounded by mountains and kind of that environment. So it's more of like
that's what a lot of people think, right? Is that picturesque mountain scenery fly fishing, but you can fly fish in any state in the United States as long as there's water. I think the idea of being out there on the water is the whole point of fly fishing. It's getting out there and trying new things.
So it's not necessarily just like in a lake or any place like that.
No, I have buddies that carp fish in New York City, of all places. So
okay,
the fishing's there. If there's water, there's fish in it. You can fly fish.
Wow, awesome. That's good to know. So now, when it comes to fly fishing, is it harder than regular fishing? What are kind of like the what would be somebody that's just getting started, maybe looking at regular fishing versus fly fishing? Is it harder than regular fishing?
I would say yes. There's a learning curve that is there, and I'm learning this right now, trying to teach my son and my daughter how to fly fish. And it also has to do just with motor skills at their age, right? So, but as soon as you kind of grasp the initial concepts of waiting for that line to get back and then making that cast forward and stopping to have that progression of that fly line, things get a lot easier and things start to click. Then you can start kind of dialing in, okay, what kind of flies am I going to use? What techniques am I going to do? But the initial learning curve, as soon as you get past that hump, after that, fly fishing gets fun.
Okay. So there's definitely like a lot of kind of strategy behind it. I think that's with like any kind of fishing, right? You got to look at what bait and what lures and everything. But there's kind of like a strategy and a gamemanship to this. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's strategy that goes in. Like if you're just going out and you say, hey, I got to catch as many fish as possible, there's strategies for that. If you're going out and you're trying to catch the biggest fish, there's a different strategy for that. Because if you're just pounding the water and trying to catch as many fish, you're going to be scaring out those big fish, right? So there's different techniques of what you want to do or what you want to try. But if you're just getting into it and you're just starting, the best thing to do is, if you can, try to take a lesson, watch some videos. We have some videos on our website that'll get you started. I mean, then as soon as you have the gear, I mean, you can practice in your backyard. That's what I do with my kids is we just tie on a little piece of yarn versus a real fly, because I don't want them to hook a tree or themselves. And And we just put a hoop out there and say, hey, first one to hit the hoop. And then we take 5 steps back and get more line out, keep practicing that way. So there's different ways to learn. You don't have to be on the water to do it. But when you do get on the water and you have practice, that's when it starts to become fun, especially when you catch that first fish.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, definitely always when you catch that fish, there's a big, kind of excitement to that. So what makes fly fishing great for beginners?
Yeah, I think fly fishing is great for beginners, especially if you've never fished before. Then you're coming up with an open mind, right? So if you're not thinking, hey, I'm used to casting a lure, you're going to go in there thinking of the basic mechanics of getting that fly line to loop to be able to place those flies where you want them to be. So I think it's a great thing for beginners, and it's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Awesome. So when it comes to fly fishing, how does fly fishing work when you're trying to catch bass?
So bass, they're a very aggressive species. There's different techniques that you can do to catch bass. You can have what they call.
All right. When it comes to fly fishing, and we just mentioned this before, how does it work when you're fly fishing in a lake?
Yeah, so lakes have different techniques versus rivers and streams. Lakes are going to be using techniques that are going to be fishing through different columns of the water, depending on where the fish are, up or down, depending on that day. A lot of the same gear, a lot of the same casting techniques. But you're going to have additional items that you're going to want to kind of pick up for that. You're going to want a couple different sink lines. You're going to want different types of indicators. You're going to have a lot longer leaders than you would typically do on a river or stream. So a lot of the basics are still there. You're just adding additional techniques to be able to catch those fish in those different water columns.
Okay, great. And then a lot of people think of fly fishing as in terms of catching trout. Is that correct?
That is the biggest one. I think that's the number one thing people think about when fly fishing is we're going to go trout fishing. But there's so many species. I mean, in the United States alone, the warmwater species are fantastic to fly fish. One of my favorite species to fly fish for is carp, common carp, grass carp. Other species that are fantastic are bass. And then you start getting into your saltwater species. I mean, that's a whole nother world that opens up for people that are close to a beach, and a lot of these things, you don't need a boat. You don't need to pay for a chartered, tour or anything. You don't need to be floating down the river. You can access all these spots and all these type of species just by walking up to the water and be able to cast them.
Yeah, that's actually a great point because I mean, when you think of fishing, you think of you got to get at least a small boat, right? You kind of go out, or you got to get a charter and know when they're leaving and going out. But with fly fishing, you could just walk to a body of water that and kind of just go ahead and get started. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a good amount of the reservoirs, ponds, lakes, rivers, every body of water in the United States, most of them have some sort of species in them. You just got to look into where we want to go and see what kind of species they have and find the techniques that you can use to catch those. There's fly fishermen out there that, that's their bucket list is how many species can I catch? There's a few that are over the 500 mark, which is pretty amazing. I think that there's that diverse of ecosystem just in the United States alone.
Wow. Awesome. Awesome. Now, when it comes to, I guess, seasonality, right? You want to be there. There's definitely a fishing season depending on where you're at in the country. But when is fly fishing season considered like this is fly fishing season?
Yeah, so that's kind of the biggest secret that's kind of been let out since COVID. There really isn't one. You can fish year round in most places right now. Fishing is going to be better during certain times of the year, and that's dependent on where you live in the country. But like for me here in Colorado, as long as there's not ice covering the entire body of water, like I'm out there fly fishing. You can use different flies depending on what time of year, different techniques, but really you can fish year round. Now I say that with a caveat. Certain states have what they call a fishing season where it doesn't kick off until, July 1st, that type of thing. Or there's specific seasons for specific species. So always check with your local authorities on what you can and cannot do in your local state and local waters.
Okay, so depending on, if we were to go through the country, would you be able to go kind of like, okay, here's kind of like the best time in this area, or do you think it's better for people to kind of research that?
Yeah, we could go state by state, but it's one of those things that it's good to research it. We also have many articles on every state that will dive into where you can fish, and when the best time is. And those are all found at drifthook.com.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. All right. So here's a really cool question. This goes into the whole sport. So, what are the different types of flies for fly fishing?
So you break that down into categories. First one's going to be nymphs. That right there are aquatic insects that live under the water. Next ones are emergers, and that's where it's going from the nymphal stage to the emerging stage and trying to get to the water to become an adult. Then you have your adult stage, which are dry flies. And then you have spinners, which are the dead dry flies. Now that just covers your basic overarching categories of the different stages of a fly. So within those, you have different species. You have mayfly, midge, caddis, stonefly. It sounds like a lot. We've done a really good job of breaking down that information for you. Also can be found at drifthook.com. I sorry to keep saying drifthook.com, but it's a good
No,
place.
I mean that's fine. Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna make sure also to put it. It's gonna be on the screen. So why don't we talk about? You talked about nymph a little bit. What exactly is a nymph in fly fishing?
Well, can we go back? We're not quite done with the actual what other items that you can fly fish with.
Okay.
So when people talk about flies, they think of just bugs, right? But in fly fishing, that could also mean a streamer, which is it represents a bait fish. You could have poppers, which represent frogs. You can have what else? Leech patterns, anything that a fish is going to eat. Some fly tyers try to make something to mimic that. So it's about finding out what your local fish are eating, what your trout are eating, and trying to match that. And that's what they kind of call match the hatch, which is another term you're going to hear a lot. What is match the hatch? And that's pretty much what it means. It's trying to find out what that trout are feeding on and trying to find a pattern that is going to match that feeding pattern.
Okay. Awesome. And then in terms of specific, like for example, like a nymph, what exactly is a nymph in fly fishing?
Yeah, so a nymph is a pattern that's relatively small that is a underwater pattern. This represents the nymphal stage of a specific species of fly. So, for instance, a caddis nymph is replicating that nymphal stage of a caddis. You have them with mayflies, you have them with midges, a bunch of other different categories. But that's initially what it is. It's a fly that's going to be bouncing along the bottom of a river or water that is mimicking something, a small nymphal stage that got pushed off of the rock that the fish is going to eat.
Okay. So, and then there's also a midge, right?
Yeah.
What exactly are midge in fly fishing?
So midge is probably one of my favorite categories because it's a fly pattern or a species of flies that hatches year round. You can fish a midge in December all the way through, January through December, you'd be fishing midges. It's one of the biggest staples for trout year round. So the biggest fish I've ever caught has been on a midge. A lot of fly fishermen, when they're just starting out, they kind of shy away from midges because they usually come in very, very small fly patterns, anywhere from a size 16 to size 22. We're not going to go into those sizes right now because I don't want to confuse anybody, but just imagine it's probably the smallest fly pattern that you're going to put on the line. But they eat them year round, right? So it's like French fries coming down the conveyor belt. They see them and they're going to eat them because they're just so consistent. Now, other hatches throughout the year, they're not as consistent, but it's like, okay, I've been eating French fries all day long. Oh, there's a cheeseburger. Let's go for it. That type of thing. But yeah, the midge is a great set of flies, and there's a ton of different patterns that have been tied to mimic different stages of midges, different types of midges. Midge in general, it's just a non-biting fly. It's like a mosquito that doesn't bite. You'll see them all the time.
Okay, awesome. And then in terms of like fly fishing for trout, what would be some of the techniques that you use when you're trying to fly fish for trout?
Yeah, so trout, there's 3 techniques that I like to use for trout: nymphing, dry fly fishing, and streamer fishing. Those 3 type of techniques are going to help you catch trout. Now, underneath there's different techniques in each one of those categories, and we can dive into each one of those on a different day, Dennis. But as always, you can find videos in each one of those categories and how to do it and different techniques underneath those categories at our website.
Awesome. And then finally, when somebody's looking to get started, fly fishing, what would be some of the basics that they would need in terms of wearing to go out fly fishing?
Yeah, so this is the one that's probably going to give me a lot of comments. I don't know if they're going to be good or bad, but really, you just need a fly rod. I started out fly fishing. I had a pair of old shoes, some shorts, my fly rod. I do recommend a hat so you don't hook your head. I do recommend sunglasses. But if you want to dive deeper and you want to be more prepared for the weather, those type of things, I always recommend dressing in layers. Here in Colorado, it can be sunny, 75 one minute, and then next minute it's rain, hailing, and you're gonna want those different layers. Other things I also recommend for people that aren't used to cold water and they're fishing in a cold water area are waders. They're a little bit, you can get them in different price ranges, but they do make your day last longer. You're not going to get cold in the water. Your feet aren't going to get cold. If you do fall into the water, you're not soaking wet. Um, Other things I also like to recommend is always bring a raincoat. Check your weather because weather can move in. You don't want to be, 2 miles away from your car, and next thing you know, a big storm's coming in, right? Other things I also recommend, sunscreen. Nothing worse than getting sunburn. But definitely layering up. And then we have a full article on this and things you can use, and things that you should probably at least consider before you go out fly fishing. But all in all, I mean, really, it's just what you're feeling comfortable with as you go out on the water.
All right, awesome. I think we covered like a lot of questions that kind of beginners ask. What I want to do is kind of go into more of like what you've built at this point towards the
Oh,
end
yeah.
of this episode. So, because I know you've invested a lot of time kind of putting together a bunch of content. So somebody that they would go to the website, right? What would be some of the beginner content that they could start consuming to learn about this?
Yeah. So, very first thing that we like to kind of go over is what gear are you going to need? What's going to be the best fly rod for a beginner? What's going to be what lines do you need? What is a leader? What is tibbet? These are terms that you hear in fly fishing that if, Dennis, you probably don't have no idea what any of these things are. We go into detail about each of one of those beginning gear type of things. Then we also dive into what you should be wearing out fly fishing, what we recommend so you're comfortable out on the water. After that, we kind of dive into the different sections of fly rods. How is your fly rod built? How is it supposed to react? The reel that goes on it, the line that you need, all these little things that seem overwhelming. We break it down into very simple things to make it easier for you to get out of the water faster. After that, we go into basic techniques of how to cast, how to roll cast. From there, we kind of dive into entomology, like what does a fly mean? What does this pattern mean? How should I use it? And then from there, we kind of go into the other techniques. We go into your nymphing, your streamer fishing, your dry fly fishing, and all the little techniques that you can do within that to make the game just that much more exciting.
Yeah, and so you really have like an entire library that could take somebody from beginner to really kind of having the knowledge to be able to go on the water confidently and have a great day fly fishing.
Yeah, that was the idea when we started putting everything together. Is like, if you've never done it, what do you need? And then if you have, like, okay, how can we help you improve? And if you're a really good fly fisherman, like, is there something here you didn't know about? So, and I'm learning this stuff every day. It's one of those things I just want to keep updating videos and keep doing it. Um, and it will come. We will continue to post new videos and things like that. But having this opportunity today with you, Dennis, to actually just be able to talk through a few things has been fun. It's been a blast.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah. I want to go in a little bit into like your product line too, because I think
Okay.
that's also important. I know you started with like when you first started, like what did you start with, and then how has
Started
that
with
grown?
4 kits. So we
Okay.
had a nymph kit and a dry fly kit. And then I guess you'd call it the step up nymph kit and the step up dry fly kit. From there, we now have, I believe, 14 different kits and bundles, depending on what type of fly fishing you like to do. If you like to nymph, we have two beautiful sets that you can buy for that. If you like to Euro nymph, we have a set for that. If you're a dry fly aficionado, we have a hopper dropper kit. We have a dry fly kit. And then our latest one that we released last year is a life cycle kit. So if you really love to fish mayflies and that's all you want to fish all day long, we have it from the nymphal stage all the way to the adult stage.
Okay. So you have kind of like a kit for anybody that wants to go on the water, whether they're beginner experience, where they want to do a specific kind of fish. You really take, how long has it taken you to build these products?
So when we started out 10 years ago, it's taken about 10 years to get it to where it's at now. And we continue to refine and build new kits. One of these days I want to do what they call a weekend warrior kit, right? Something that it's just one box and it has anything you want for the entire weekend. So that's just what we're kind of developing right now. So keep an eye out for that one. But I think it's going to be a huge hit.
What's your best selling kit that people kind of gravitate to?
Our best selling kit is our gag nymphs kit.
How many flies do you have on that kit right there?
This one right here comes with 120 flies. It's double sided. Everything has been labeled by species. So it's easy for you to get out of the water and be like, all right, I'm looking at my chart in my area right now. They say midges are working. Bam, I got my midges. I can grab my fly, tie it on, and go fishing. So we have a 30-day money back guarantee. If you don't like it, just send it back to us. We'll give you full money back. And in all reality, if you don't like it after 40 days, I'll still give you your money back. I'm just glad you're out there fly fishing.
Awesome.
Product. So
yeah. And then this is like a totally novice question that I would have, but like, obviously once you use the flies and you catch some fish with it, that's it. The fly's gone, right? Like,
no, they're reusable, but then again, it's kind of like a baseball, right? You hit a baseball so many times, it's going to get dirty. It's going to get beat up. Most of the time I can catch, let's say 5 or 6 fish on a fly before it gets really beat up. But that also depends on the pattern too. Dry flies are a little more delicate. They get chomped on pretty hard, pretty fast. Where a Euro nymph fly is a lot more streamlined, a lot harder. Those pretty much last a lifetime if you don't lose them.
And really what separates, like, kind of, I know in doing some of my research on this, like there's people that they buy flies like at gas stations or like regular kind of places. Like, what makes your flies totally different from obviously the basic fly?
So the basic fly that you're going to get at a gas station is typically going to be made in bulk, like, tens of thousands at a time. We're a small batch company. We work with fly tires all over the United States. We work with them Taiwan, Kenya, Seattle, Dallas, and we try to find the best fly at the right price. I'd love to say that all of our flies are American made, but at times there's just not the right person that can tie that good of fly at that price. So what we try to do is give you the best assortment and not break the bank. I mean, there's a lot of upscale when you go to a fly shop, but you're also paying for the fly shop's knowledge as well. So I love fly shops. I go into one once a week, just to talk with the guys and see what's out there in the marketplace. But if you want to get started and you want to do it on your own, this is a great option for you.
Awesome. How did you come up with the name Drifthook?
I had a few different names going through and then kind of toss it around. And oddly enough, if there's a URL that is not taken by a name, that's kind of how I came up with that. Your drift is fly and then you're hooking a fish. Drifthook.
Yeah, I kind of thought about that. Like, you kind of like put it in the water, it drifts, has a hook. So it's pretty interesting. So if there's kind of a piece of advice that you would give to somebody who's interested and looking at getting started with fly fishing, what would it be?
First thing I would say is walk into a fly shop, try to see what is out there. They're going to give you a lot of knowledge as well. They're going to help you with what type of fly rod you should be getting, what type of introductory flies you might want. Those are all great things, right? After that, you can start, diving into our site, learning more of your skills. Say, hey, this is fun. Like, I need more flies, because you're going to go out there, catch that first fish on maybe the first fly you buy, and you're going to realize you need a lot more flies.
All right, Matthew, this has been like some awesome kind of information that we've been able to give people. What are some things that you're looking forward to kind of in doing in this series of kind of podcasts that we're going to be doing?
Yeah, so I want to get through the basics for everybody. I want them to kind of grasp the initial concepts. And in secondary, I kind of want to go into dive a little bit deeper into some more advanced techniques. Now, some people out there are probably going to say, that's not advanced. We've been doing that for years. But if you're brand new to it, it gets exciting when someone tells you, hey, try tying on 2 flies and try and, X amount of length from your leader to your weight, things like that. All these little things can help you. It's all stuff that somebody before me, somebody before even my dad probably figured out. It's one fun thing about fly fishing. The deeper down the rabbit hole you go, somebody says it's a new technique, and they do the history on it, and they've been doing that techniques for 150 years. So it's all fun. It's all neat stuff to try, and want to be able to share that with everybody.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, this has been fun, not only for me because I'm starting to learn about this and I'm on this journey with you kind of as a beginner also, but hopefully everybody that's watching this, if you have any questions, go ahead and put them in the comments. We're going to be answering questions from people that comment on the videos, and definitely look out for our next episode. Matthew, thanks so much. It's been a blast, and I will talk to you later.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Take care.